Hey everyone, I have 2 great tips for you in this video. Let's get right into it. So I get asked a lot of what do I do with my leftover icing, or how do I freeze my icing? So what I do is grab a freezer Ziploc bag, and then once I'm done my cookies, my set, I don't need my icing anymore. And then I will squish all the icing up as much as possible so I can get, all the icing to the top and get a nice flat tip here. And then I just roll up my tip kind of as tight as I can and as high as I can. Sometimes when your bags are fuller, you can't roll it up as much if you haven't used much icing. And then once I have it nicely rolled up, I will put it in my freezer bag right in the corner. So I'm going to build up all my bags into the corners just so they don't unravel. The reason I roll up the tips is because I don't want my flood icing to leak out. So this is really helpful. And sometimes like this bag here is a little bit fuller, so I try to squish as much as I can and move the icing up. And you can see my flood icing here keeps kind of coming down, so that's why I roll it up. And this really helps with preventing it from leaking in my bag. And then I kind of just pile them in one after another, and again trying to keep them nice in the corner there, or nice and tight so that they don't unravel too much so we don't get any leakage in the bag. And I do this with all my bags. And then once I'm done, I will pop it in the freezer. And it's good for, up to a few months. And it comes in handy, especially when you need a little bit of red or black or a certain color. It's great to have a little bit of leftover icing. You don't have to recolor everything. And before you close the bag, you just want to squish out as much air as you can. And it makes it easier to store in my freezer. This is also how I store my icing overnight in the fridge while I'm working on a set. It usually takes me 3 to 4 nights to completely decorate a set. And so sometimes to slow separation down, I will put my icing like this and I will pop it in the fridge overnight. That way the icing doesn't separate as much. And the next day, if you put it in the freezer and you need it again, you just let it defrost on the counter. It defrosts within a couple hours. And then you unroll your tip, you squish your icing down, and it pipes exactly like you did before. So rolling up the tip or folding the tip doesn't really affect it too much. Super easy and a great way to save leftover icing. So next up, we're going to be talking about craters. So this here is a crater. That's when the icing caves in on itself and either leaves an indent or a hole in your icing, which we don't want normally. So what you see me doing a lot is putting a squiggle line or, like a little straight line here if it's a really narrow area. And I use thicker icing to do this. And then I'll flood on top right away. Now, the reason I do this is because of those craters. This extra line gives some support to the icing so it doesn't cave in on itself. Another way to prevent craters is to pipe your next layer, so your second layer of icing, on top of your first layer before it fully dries. So here my bottom layer is crusted over, but it's not fully dry, and I'm going to go ahead and pipe my top layer. And in any areas that are narrow or small, that's usually when I do that extra squiggle. So it doesn't have to be your whole cookie, just wherever you think might crater or wherever you've experienced craters before. Thicker icing also helps prevent craters. The thicker your icing is, the less prone to craters it is. If you have really thin, loose icing in small areas, most of the time you'll probably get craters because the sides dry faster than the middle area, and so the icing sort of caves in on itself. Hopefully these tips help you out. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you do so you don't miss another video, and we'll see you in the next one. Happy baking!